Oklahoma has made the college football playoff the past 2 seasons, but can they make it 3 in a row and finally break through to the national championship? Find out here on the Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.
Lincoln Riley's resume as head coach of the Sooners is unbelievable. In just 2 seasons, he has compiled a 24-4 record, produced 2 Heisman Trophy winners, and has made 2 straight college football playoff appearances. Unfortunately for Oklahoma, those 2 college football playoff appearances both resulted in losses, a heartbreaking loss to Georgia 2 years ago and an 11-point loss to Alabama last year. But Riley once again has Oklahoma poised for a return trip to the college football playoff, which would be their 3rd straight under Lincoln Riley in just 3 years as head coach of the Sooners. Oklahoma returns 4 offensive starters, but their biggest playmaker will be none other than the transfer quarterback in Jalen Hurts. Yet another transfer that Lincoln Riley is producing at quarterback. He had Baker Mayfield 2 years ago that won the Heisman Trophy. Had Kyler Murray last year who won the Heisman Trophy. Can the same be said for Jalen Hurts, the transfer quarterback from Alabama? And Riley recently came out and said that Hurts has not won the job yet, that he still has to earn that job. But of course, that's what all coaches say. Riley said that about Kyler Murray last year, and we all know what happened after that. It's practically a foregone conclusion that Jalen Hurts will be the starting quarterback for Oklahoma in 2019, and he has a phenomenal crew around him with 2 phenomenal running backs in Trey, who rushed for over 900 yards last year, and Kennedy Brooks, who rushed for over 1,000 yards last year as well. So Oklahoma, mostly being known for the past couple of years, will have a phenomenal running game, and even though they lose Marquise Brown, their leading wide receiver from 2018, they do return CeeDee Lamb, who had over 1,100 yards receiving and 11 touchdowns last year. So Jalen Hurts, I think, will fit into this system perfectly. He has a great supporting cast. Even though they only return 4 starters offensively, Oklahoma's offense will not see a big drop-off in production, if there will be any at all. Defensively, Oklahoma returns 8 starters, and this is going to be huge for them. Always the question mark for Oklahoma. They allowed 33.3 points per game last year, including 40 points or more in 5 of their final 6 games. But this is a very experienced Oklahoma defense. I think it could be the best yet under Lincoln Riley, now entering his 3rd year with the Sooners. Expect those numbers to increase drastically in 2019. Not fully, but because it is still the Big 12, but expect them to increase enough that Oklahoma will once again be a contender in the Big 12 and for the college football playoff. Their defense will get a major test in Week 1, though, kicking off the season against Houston, and luckily this game is at home for the Sooners. If you remember back in 2016, these 2 teams met in Houston at NRG Stadium, and the Cougars upset Oklahoma 33-23. The Sooners were number 3 in the country at the time. Of course, those guys were still led by Greg Ward and Tom Herman at the head coaching position. Now, gone is Tom Herman, gone is Greg Ward, but De'Aaron King is back at quarterback, and Dana Holgorsen comes over from West Virginia and takes over for Houston. This game, if you love offense, is absolutely the game for you. Will be a huge shootout in Norman, but in the end, I think the experience of Oklahoma gets the edge over Houston here. I think the head coaching experience and Lincoln Riley, he has the pedigree with Oklahoma. Holgorsen's having to take over a brand new team. Houston's offense will be a strength for them. Their defense will be their downfall with only a couple returning starters there as well. Very high scoring, but Oklahoma gets the win over Houston in a little bit of a late revenge game after that loss back in 2016. They get an easy win over South Dakota. We have no doubt in our mind there before going on the road to face off against UCLA. And last year at home, Oklahoma beat the Bruins 49-21. And it was a pretty disappointing year overall for Chip Kelly and the Bruins in 2018. This year, though, UCLA will be much more improved. They returned 9 starters offensively and 10 starters defensively. And out west, going way out to California, not an easy place to play, not an easy road game for Oklahoma. But I do believe that they will get the job done this game. I expect UCLA to be much more competitive. We saw that towards the end of the stretch of 2018, how much more competitive they were. Expect this game to be closer than the 28-point margin of victory that the Sooners had last year, but not enough for UCLA to win in 2019. Oklahoma kicks off the season 3-0 with 2 quality wins over good opponents in Houston and UCLA. They get an early bye week in just week 4, coming back home to face off against Texas Tech. So they're going to kick off Big 12 play and are not going to look back after that. Last year against the Red Raiders, Oklahoma avoided the major upset. They beat Texas Tech on the road 51-46. And keep in mind that Alan Bowman was actually out for the second half of that game. So they narrowly lost to almost lost to the Red Raiders despite their starting quarterback being out for the entire second half. Nonetheless, though, Texas Tech, like Houston and like many other Big 12 schools, are under new management with Matt Wells coming in as head coach. Alan Bowman is back at quarterback, and I expect him to do phenomenal things there, assuming he can stay healthy. I expect the offense to not really see a major drop-off in production, as many people would think after the loss of Cliff Kingsbury. The defense for Texas Tech will improve, and if this game was in Lubbock, I might be picking an upset there. But Oklahoma's coming off a bye. They get to host the Red Raiders. I think they beat Texas Tech in this one, and they are 4-0. We'll make it an easy 5-0 here on the road against Kansas, another school that brings in a new head coach, probably the biggest name of the entire offseason, and Les Miles coming out of retirement, or technically out of retirement after getting fired at LSU, now coming back to coach with the Jayhawks. Expect Kansas to be very, very competitive in 2019. No doubt in my mind. They dropped 40 on Oklahoma last year in Norman. So they have the talent there, including a phenomenal running back in Puka Williams. But this game, even though it is at home for the Jayhawks, they have so much left to learn. They have so much left to improve. Les Miles inherited a very poor team, was dealt the worst hand out of all the new Big 12 coaches. Kansas, I don't think, stands much of a chance against the Sooners in this one. And Oklahoma, now 5-0. Then, of course, comes the biggest game on their schedule, the one that is circled on everybody's calendar, the Red River rivalry between Oklahoma and Texas. Of course, this game going to be played in Dallas like it always is. The past 5 games between the Longhorns and the Sooners have been decided by one possession, just 7 points or less. Oklahoma is 3-2 in the past 5 meetings against Texas, but lost last year 48-45 to the Longhorns. They staged a phenomenal comeback against Texas, but ended up losing to Dicker, the kicker, 48-45. Texas this year is a team that I am very excited to watch. Sam Ehlinger back at quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12, maybe even in the entire nation. They lose little Jordan Humphrey at wide receiver, but Colin Johnson comes back as one of the best wide receivers in the entire Big 12. They have Keontae Ingram at running back, and their defense only returns 3 starters, and that could be their downfall in this game. Maybe their downfall for the season, but I don't think they're getting enough attention. Despite just returning 3 starters, I still think they can be dangerous. I'm predicting a loss here for Oklahoma to the Longhorns. Their second straight loss to Texas. Back-to-back losses in the Red River rivalry. I know that doesn't happen too much, but I think Texas owns the quarterback edge. I'm going to give Sam Ehlinger the slight edge over Jalen Hurts in this game. I think Oklahoma obviously is hungry to avenge that loss they took last year, a crushing loss to the Longhorns. But Texas hungry to avenge that loss in the Big 12 championship game last year. Will be another phenomenal meeting in the Red River rivalry, no doubt in my mind, but Texas gets the win over Oklahoma for the second straight year, and Oklahoma takes their first loss of the season. They come back home to face off against West Virginia, and last year's meeting was a great matchup. 59-56 between the Sooners and the Mountaineers with a spot in the Big 12 championship on the line. But of course, you cannot reflect on the past. You can't say what's going to happen this year because of what happened last year. Gone is Will Grier. Gone is David Sills. Gone is Dana Holgorsen. West Virginia is dealing with a brand new era of Mountaineer football, bringing in Neil Brown from Troy, their brand new head coach. This game does have a lot of storylines, though, because they will be facing off against Austin Kendall, who will now be the quarterback for West Virginia, but was the backup quarterback last year for the Sooners. So he's going to have a chance to try to beat his old team, coming back to his former old home stadium. But West Virginia this year is going to have a rough year in Neil Brown's first season at the helm. They do return Austin Kendall. I like that. I like Kennedy McCoy at running back. I like how they have about 6 stars returning on defense. But Neil Brown struggled in year 1 at Troy. He will struggle in year 1 at West Virginia. This game's on the road. They don't stand much of a chance. Oklahoma bounces back with that loss against Texas with a win against West Virginia. They go on the road to face off against Kansas State. And this is certainly, once again, not a game that Oklahoma wants to overlook because Kansas State is always one of those sneaky teams that could pull off a major upset. But like Kansas, like Houston, like West Virginia, like Texas Tech, Kansas State is bringing in a brand new head coach, and Chris Kleiman from North Dakota State of the FCS, where he won 4 national championships. Kansas State, I think Chris Klieman was probably dealt the best hand out of all the brand new Big 12 coaches. I think he has a great quarterback in Skylar Thompson. I think he has a very experienced defense with 8 returning starters. This game is a trap game for Oklahoma, but I still think that Jalen Hurts probably hit this stride here in this Kansas game and never really looks back after that. And I think they go on the road and take care of Kansas State in this game, a team that is still going to be learning under new management, a team that I think could surprise in 2019, but will definitely surprise more in 2020. Oklahoma goes on the road, beats the Wildcats for their second straight win after that loss to Texas. They get a much-needed bye week to kick off November. Of course, the month where anything can happen in college football. And I like that this bye week comes right before a big-time showdown against Iowa State, a game that could drastically affect who is going to be playing in the Big 12 championship game, because the Cyclones are the real deal in 2019. They are a team that could very well make the Big 12 title game. And had they not lost to Texas last year, could have been playing against Oklahoma in that Big 12 title game. The last time the Cyclones visited Oklahoma, though, they upset them, beat them 38-31 in 2017, one of the biggest upsets of that entire season. But this year, Oklahoma won't overlook the Cyclones, even though they returned 16 starters. Even though I think they're going to have a great season, I don't think that Iowa State will come on the road and beat them again. Last year in Ames, Oklahoma won by 10. This Iowa State team, I think, could be better than the one they had last year. But with this week of rest beforehand, Oklahoma's fate still in their hands for a college football playoff berth and a Big 12 title. They get the win over the Cyclones. But do not be surprised if this game is very, very close. They then go on the road against Baylor on November 16th, and this is the game that Oklahoma has to watch out for. A major trap game for the Sooners. On the road against the Bears, even though they won by 33 last year, Baylor is going to be so much more improved in 2019, especially led by a very veteran quarterback in Charlie Brewer. Watch out for Baylor, a team that could win anywhere between 7 to 9 regular season games in 2019. On the road in Waco, last time here in Waco, Oklahoma only won 49-41, and that was against a Baylor team that went 1-11. You have to be careful with the Bears. I think Oklahoma wins this one, but just barely. I think it's another close victory, much like it was 2 years ago when they last visited Baylor. But Oklahoma escapes a Baylor team that Matt Rule is doing a phenomenal job with. They come back home to face off against TCU, a team that's going to have a big-time bounce-back year under Gary Patterson. Still have questions at the quarterback position, though. That's their downfall here. Even though whoever is starter should have hit their stride by nearly the end of the season, TCU is going to have issues at the quarterback position, I think. But their defense and their running game will be their strength in 2019. That will make them a contender in the Big 12. But with this game being at home, Oklahoma wins this game, but they have to be careful not to overlook them with their big-time rivalry game coming up against Oklahoma State. But I'm going to give them a win against TCU at home, and then I'm going to give them a win to close out the year against Oklahoma State. I know last year in Norman, Oklahoma only won 48-47 and could have lost if Oklahoma State had converted that two-point conversion. They could have won 49-48. The quarterback question, kind of like TCU, remains to be seen. Will it be Spencer Sanders or Drew Brown? But their running game, like TCU, is going to be very good in 2019, led by Chuba Hubbard. Mike Gundy always has his team ready to go, and you always have your teams ready to go in rivalry games. Oklahoma never can afford to overlook the Cowboys in this one, especially with it being on the road. But I think, once again, they get a win over Oklahoma State, and what could be a close one. So this final month of November going to be very dangerous for the Sooners, but I think they win all 4 of those games against quality opponents, and they finish the season 11-1, which is what they were last year in the regular season, finishing 11-1, winning the Big 12 title game over Texas, falling to Alabama in the college football playoff. 11-1 with one conference loss to Texas can almost guarantee them a spot in the Big 12 title game in 2019. But can they win it over the likes of Texas or Iowa State or maybe even TCU? And if they do that, can they finally win a college football playoff game in 2019 and break through to the national championship game? So guys, as always, thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Go follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Gridiron Expert. And also go check out our official website, thegridironexpert.com. Sign up for our newsletter and sign up for our expert picks. For just $30, you will receive every single one of our 2019 college football spread picks, including the postseason. And I can promise you that is a deal you do not want to pass up. So join our team, sign up today only at thegridironexpert.com. And guys, as always, thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.